Hey, fifth grade, this is Miss Gibson coming to you with reading for today. So, of course, you guys should always have the three tabs up whenever we do reading for the next few weeks. So, you need to be on Wednesday, May 6th, 2020, your reading virtual learning packet. You need to have the text up for Bud Not Buddy. Today, we are going to be reading chapter 6. So, this is going to be at the end, like around page 26. So, make sure you're there. And then, of course, the stop and jot page for today, because as we go through and read the chapter together or independently, you guys need to also answer the stop and jot so that we can discuss them together. So go ahead and get these three tabs open if you don't already, along with the video, and then come back. All right, so welcome back from getting everything open. So, of course, we're still reading Bud Not Buddy. Again, the pages that you guys should be on for chapter 6 are pages 25. So, the end of 25, and we're going to read till page 30 in our link. Just as a recap question for you guys to think about, what has been going on with Bud since he's left the home? So, of course, as you guys should know, there have been so many things that's been going on. But he was into a new foster home with a Moses, and then, of course, he's getting beat up there. He's being put into a shed. He's getting attacked by hornets. He's running away. But now he's basically trying to figure out his new path in life because now since he got his revenge, he definitely does not want to go back to the new foster family. And of course, he doesn't want to go back to the home. So we're going to begin with reading the first couple pages together. As we're reading, we're trying to track the new setting that Bud is in and how this new setting is affecting him, what he's learning about that. So that's what we should be doing the entire chapter today. So everyone should be on chapter 6, end of page 25. Follow along as I read aloud. Again, you are tracking for the setting and what's going on within it. Of course, we already know that Bud is not anywhere close to home. He has run away. He's been sleeping out in the streets, and now he's basically just trying to find a new place to go. So let's get into what happens next. Chapter 6. Uh-oh. My eyes opened and I could see the sun behind the branch of a Christmas tree. I jumped up, folded my blanket inside my suitcase, hid it, and started running the 6 or 7 blocks down to the mission. I turned the corner and said, whew. There were still people lined up waiting. I started walking along the line. The end was a lot farther away than I thought. The line turned all the way around 2 corners, then crossed over one street before I saw the last person. Shucks. I walked up to get behind him. He said, lines closed. These here files are the last ones. He pointed at a man standing next to a woman who was carrying a baby. I said, but sir, he said, but nothing. Lines closed. These here folks are the last ones. It was time to start lying. If I didn't get any food now, I'd have to steal something out of someone's garbage or I wouldn't be able to eat until the mission opened for supper. I said, sir, The man raised his hand and said, look, kid, everybody's got a story and everybody knows the rules. The line closes at 7 o'clock. How's it fair to these people who've been here since 5 o'clock that you can sleep in until he looked at his wristwatch until 7:15, then come busting down here expecting to eat? You think you got some kind of special privilege just because you're skinny and raggedy? Look in the line. There's lots of folks look just like you. You ain't the worst. Supper starts at 6 p.m., but you see how things is. If you plan on getting fed, you better be aligned by 4. Now get out of here before I get rough with you. Shucks, being hungry for a whole day is about as bad as it can get, I said. But he reached in his pocket and pulled something out that looked like a heavy black strap and slapped it across his hand. Uh-oh, here we go again. He said, that's it. No more talk. You open your mouth one time too many. You rotten kids today don't listen to no one, but I'm going to show you something that'll improve your hearing. He slapped a strap on his hand and started walking towards me. Scrolling down. I was wrong when I said being hungry for a day is about as bad as it can get. Being hungry plus having a big knot on your head from a black leather strap would be even worse. I backed away, but only got 2 steps before I felt a giant warm hand wrap around my neck from behind. I looked up to see whose doggone hand was so doggone big and why they put it around my neck. A very tall, square shaped man in old blue overalls looked down at me and said, Clarence, what took you so long? I got ready to say, my name's not Clarence, and please don't choke me, sir. I'll leave. But as soon as I opened my mouth, he gave my head a shake and said, I told you to hurry back. Now, where have you been? He gave me a shove and said, Get in line with your mama. I looked up and down the line to see who was supposed to be my mama when a woman pointed her finger at her feet and said, Clarence, you get over here right now. There were two little kids hanging onto her skirt. I walked over to where she was and she gave me a good hard smack on the head. Shucks, for someone who was just pretending to be my mama, she sure did slap me a good one. I said, Ow. The big square man would have grabbed my neck, who grabbed my neck, looked at the man with the strap and said, Boy had to go use the capper. Told him not to waste time, but like you said, these kids today don't listen to nobody. The strap man looked at the size of the man who called me Clarence and walked back to the end of the line. When the overall man got back in line, I said, Thank you, sir. I really tried to get, but he popped me in the back of the head hard and said, Next time, don't be gone so long. The two little kids busted out laughing and said, Nah, 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 nah. Clarence got a licking. Clarence got a licking. I told them, Shut up and don't call me. Then both my pretend mama and my pretend papa smacked my head. Okay. So we just got into the beginning of chapter 6 and how basically Bud is trying to go get food within this new setting. So you guys are now going to get into the first stop and jot of explaining what happens when Bud arrives at the new setting. So, yes, make sure you are writing in complete sentences. This should not be something that you guys are only putting a couple of words down. These should be in full sentences as though this is a regular reading class, because then we're going to come back and we're going to discuss these answers. So make sure you're being thoughtful about what you're putting and explaining everything out. So stop and jot one, you are explaining what happens when Bud arrives at the new setting. Make sure you are including pieces of evidence and direct pieces from the text to help you answer this. Go ahead and pause the video and get started. All right, so welcome back from answering Stop and Jot 1. So clearly, Bud is at this new setting trying to get food. Okay, so we're realizing that at first, the guy who was working the lines wasn't trying to let him in because he was 15 minutes too late. And of course, we already know that he overslept because at the beginning of the chapter, he wakes up in like a startled phase. Like he's saying, uh oh, my eyes open, I could see the sun behind the branch of a Christmas tree. So he is rushing to get ready and he's running down the block right here. So it started running the 6 or 7 blocks down to the mission. So he gets to the mission, which is the new setting. Okay. The mission is a place where they can get food for people who are basically homeless. Okay. Just to give you guys some more background information with that. And of course, what is happening while he's there? Right. There is a family who was trying to be his pretend family in order to help him get some food. So at first he wasn't allowed to get food and the guy was being very mean and rude to him because of the time that he came. And then of course this man basically gives him a fake name named Clarence, and then after that helps him get into line with his own family just so he can go inside the mission to eat. So now he has this fake family with him at this new setting in the mission, basically trying to cater to him and help him through everything that he's going through right now. Okay, so of course, we how do we know that this is a fake family? Correct. So at the bottom of page 27, it says, both my pretend papa and my pretend mama smacked my head. So they are going through the actions of actually being his real parents, but in reality, right now, of course, they're not. Okay, we are going to continue with trying to understand what else Bud is learning from this new setting. So we were tracking the setting, what's going on with Bud, how it's affecting him, and also what he's learning from this new setting. So you guys are going to read page 28 only, okay? So 28 and then stop. As you're reading, you guys are going to track for what he's learning from this new setting. All right. And then after that, you're going to get into the second stop and jot. So as you're tracking and reading, this is the question you should be answering. How do the people in line feel about the rich white family in the picture that hangs over the mission building? So provide evidence from the text to support your answer. So make sure you are tracking for this entire time and reading carefully and trying to understand what this picture could possibly mean and why and how these people feel about it. So go ahead and pause the video and get into page 28 only. All right, so welcome back from trying out Stop and Jot 2. So I'm going to reread over the place where the billboards comes up with the rich family, and then after that, we're going to talk about why and how people may feel about this being there. So the main thing people were talking about, so right here in the middle of page 28, we're talking about was the great big sign that was hanging over the building. It showed a gigantic picture of a family of four rich white people sitting in a car driving somewhere. You could tell it was a family because they all looked exactly alike. The only difference amongst them was that the daddy had a big head and a hat, and the mama had the same head with a woman's hat, and the girl had two big yellow pigtails coming out from above her ears. They all had big shiny teeth and big shiny eyes and big shiny cheeks and big shiny smiles. Shucks, you need to squint your eyes if that shiny family drove anywhere near you. You could tell they were rich because the car looked like it had room for 8 or 9 more people in it, and because they had movie star clothes on. The woman was wearing a coat with a hunk of fur around the neck, and the man was wearing a suit and tie, and the kids looked like they were wearing $10 a piece jackets. Right about there, right above their car in fancy letters, it said, "There is no place like America today." My pretend daddy read it and said, Well, you got to give them credit. You wouldn't expect that they'd have the nerve to come down here and tell the truth. Now, realize where this big sign is at. So it's over this building called the Mission, where poor people basically have to go to get a meal. So, how do you guys think these people feel seeing this big sign above them during this time? Right. They're definitely not happy about seeing the sign because it's mostly the chatter that people are all talking about. And they're basically giving this false family vibe and rich family vibe that the town may presume. But of course, people there are not like this at all. Like, if there's a long line of people trying to get food during this time, clearly it's a rough time for people and that they do not have money or are definitely not rich, which leads into why the daddy says this at the end of the page. Where you got to give them credit. You wouldn't expect that they have the nerve to come down here and tell the truth. So clearly, people who are putting up these signs and everything are not going to actually say and reveal what's going on with the America today because they wouldn't even come down to the mission just to see how people are actually living, which is not a rich lifestyle. So they're technically unhappy with this. Okay. Now, okay, so you guys are now going to finish the chapter. So realize the author has purposely had Bud experience certain things within this chapter. So he's experiencing the people talking about the billboard and how they feel of seeing this rich white family. He's experiencing having to stand in line with these poor people and get food and wait for food. So now it's our job to kind of track to figure out what this time in history is kind of telling us, like what is this chapter kind of telling us about that time in history and what Bud is actually experiencing within this setting. So once you are done reading this chapter 6, so you guys have a couple more pages till page 30. So and then after that, you guys are going to get into the final stop and jot before coming back here to finish discussing it. So stop and jot 3 says, how does the author use setting details to help the reader understand more about this time in history? So make sure that you are using this whole chapter to answer that question, but of course, you need to finish this piece of the chapter to get into that details even further. So go ahead and pause the video and finish the chapter. All right, so welcome back from finishing chapter 6 for today and finishing the last stop and jot of how does the author use setting details to help the reader understand more about this time in history. So, what we're getting from the last couple pages about the setting right now is now we're inside of the mission. So, what are some things that are describing what inside of the mission is and the atmosphere. Right. So right here is telling us how it's a big room at the top of page 29. It's a big room, and then people are sitting in there and eating and quiet. So the only sound you could hear was when someone scraped a spoon across the bottom of their bowl or pulled a chair in or put one back, or when the people in front of you dragged their feet on the floor, moving up to where they were spooning out the food. So clearly, there are a lot of people right now in the mission trying to eat. All right. And then moving down, it also gives rules, right? So it's telling us, please do not smoke. Please eat as quickly and quiet as possible. Please be considerate and patient. Clean up after yourself. Your neighbors will be eating after you. And we are terribly sorry, but we have no work available. So, what is this kind of telling us of this time in history right now? Right. So, during this time, you can tell that people don't really have that much money. They can't provide people with jobs. People have to go to get free food because they can't afford to buy it, and then, of course, you have people there, you're only eating specific meals at specific times of the days because that's the only time you can get food. So this time and period in this history is basically really rough, okay? So realize the timing of this story and how it's affecting Bud in this moment. So we are seeing rich white families and being and having signs that say there is no place like America today. We have basically black families seeing this and being very mad and negative about it because they aren't getting the help clearly that they think that they should be getting. So all of this takes to the account of that time in history for what's going on. And just for a secret code time, the secret code word for today's exit ticket is ocean. So make sure you're spelling that correctly, Ocean. All right. Now, going back to this lesson, you guys were to be tracking what you're learning about this setting, how it's affecting Bud, what we are learning as a reader from this time period. So take all that into account as we get into more chapters because you guys will understand the setting and time period more after because this is now introducing us to a new day for Bud, and this is going to feed into how the rest of this book and the chapters to come will be happening. All right, so now it's your job to use chapter 6 from page 25. So let me just scroll up here. So chapter 6 from bottom of page 25 to page 30 and answer the exit ticket. Now, make sure you are checking your work. Some people are not showing all their effort. So make sure that when you are doing these stop and jots at all times and days to come, that you are writing in complete sentences and not putting just a couple words to explain your answer. You wouldn't do that in class. You would always have to rewrite and add more. So make sure you're actually showing and working hard and showing your teachers that you want to keep growing your minds and your work ethic. Okay. And then, of course, for your exit tickets, make sure that you are referring back to the text to answer the questions. That is showing us that you are actually paying attention to what we're reading about and you are checking your work. These exit tickets, you should be getting hundreds across the board multiple times, especially because you can have that text out right next to you. All right, go ahead and get started on that exit ticket. Have a great day.